On my 35th birthday, I received a gift of divorce papers from my mother-in-law. These are from all of us, she said in the restaurant. My husband was silent. I just smiled, signed the papers and left. But they had no idea what I had already done. And before we continue, please write what country you are from and how old you are. Enjoy listening. Elena never liked noisy feasts, but on this day, on her 35th birthday, she decided not to argue with her mother-in-law. She insisted that such an anniversary should be celebrated in a restaurant in a family way. And although in her soul Elena dreamed of a quiet evening with a book and a cup of tea, she obediently put on her favorite dark blue dress, put on light makeup and went to the city center. The restaurant was pompous, with gold lamps and snow-white tablecloths. A saxophone was playing in the corner. The waiters glided between the tables like shadows. The guests were already sitting at the long table. Mother-in-law Galina Arkadyevna, father-in-law Pyotr Sergeyevich, husband Igor and his sister with her husband. The atmosphere seemed outwardly festive. The glasses clinked, fish and meat glistened on the plates, the waiters poured wine. But inside Elena felt a strange wariness. Her mother-in-law looked too stingy and serious. Igor was too silent, although he usually liked to shine in company, crack jokes, show everyone that he was the life of the party. Today he sat, huddled, looking now at his mother, now at Elena, as if expecting something unpleasant. Well, Galina Arkadyevna raised her glass, and everyone fell silent. Today is a special day for us. Our Elena is 35. We gathered to congratulate her and give her a gift. She said it so solemnly that Elena tensed up inside. A gift. The mother-in-law never gave anything particularly valuable. More often, symbolic things, a set of towels, a saucepan, or inexpensive perfume. But now her voice was special, as if she were preparing for some theatrical scene. Galina Arkadyevna took a folder out of her purse and, smiling, put it right in front of Elena. This is from all of us, she said with obvious pleasure, as if she were playing a long-planned card. Elena opened the folder and saw the divorce documents. A stack of papers, neatly stitched, with a seal and a lawyer's signature. For a moment, time stood still. The noise in the hall died down. The voices of the guests at the neighboring tables seemed to disappear. The saxophone played too long and out of tune. She looked up at her mother-in-law. She looked triumphantly, like a general who had completed a successful offensive. The father-in-law looked away, clearly ashamed of what was happening. Igor's sister smirked at the corner of her lips, and Igor was silent. He didn't say a word. His eyes were full of guilt and confusion, but he didn't say anything. So that's it, flashed through Elena's mind. She expected her heart to break, her breath to catch, her eyes to fill with tears. But instead, a strange calm came. As if she had replayed this moment in her head hundreds of times and now she simply saw it on Eva. Sign, her mother-in-law almost whispered, but so that everyone could hear. Why drag it out? You're still young. You'll find someone worse. Elena took the pen, smiled, and with a steady hand signed the first page. Silence hung over the table. They were expecting hysteria, screaming, accusations, tears. They wanted to enjoy her humiliation, but she gave them a smile and calm. Thank you, Elena said quietly, but so that everyone could hear. This is truly the best present I could have received for my birthday. And she closed the folder. She slowly stood up from the table. The waiter ran up to move the chair, but Elena had already taken a step to the side. There was so much dignity in her movements that those present caught their breath. Elena! Igor's sister exclaimed, where are you going? We've only just started, quote. I'm done, she answered calmly. Happy holiday. And she went out, leaving them in mute confusion. It was cool outside. The December air nipped her cheeks. Her breath turned into a cloud of steam. Elena walked slowly, feeling her heels clicking on the pavement. With each step, She felt more and more relieved. She remembered all the years with Igor. His constant delays at work, cold looks, rare gifts that looked more like a handout than an expression of love. She remembered how he always listened to his mother, and not to her. How her mother-in-law gradually squeezed her out of their shared home, criticizing every move, every gesture. And now they thought that they had dealt her a fatal blow, that they had given her a surprise from which she would collapse. But they did not even suspect. Elena had long been ready for this. She knew that this moment would come, and she had been preparing her own plan. When she arrived home, to their spacious but cold apartment, where order, but there was no comfort, Elena sat down on the sofa and took a folder out of her purse. Divorce. That's it. In one fell swoop, 12 years of life were crossed out, but there was no pain in her chest, there was a feeling of liberation. She stood up, walked through the rooms, as if saying goodbye to every corner. In the kitchen, she remembered endless dinners where she cooked, and Igor sat at the phone. In the bedroom, his eternal excuses about headaches or fatigue. In the living room, their rare holidays always with the participation of his family and without a drop of her freedom. Elena smiled. That's it, she said to herself. Now everything will be different. Her phone blinked with a notification. A message from Igor. You behaved ugly. Mom wanted the best. We'll discuss it tomorrow. Elena grinned. What is the best? She knew that her mother-in-law had dreamed of breaking up their marriage for a long time. Igor just hid behind her back, as always. Mom's boy. That's what her friend Anya called her. Even when Igor and I were just dating. Then Elena was angry. Yeah, well, they're just close. But the years showed that her friend saw it more clearly than Elena herself. She turned off the phone. No more conversations. Once Igor knew how to be different, cheerful, attentive. He courted beautifully. Flowers, walks, promises to always be there. Elena then worked in the library and dreamed of a quiet family life, children, comfort, a home. Igor seemed like a reliable man who was ready to build exactly this kind of life. But as soon as they got married, Galina Arkadievna burst into her life. She decided everything. Where to relax, what furniture to buy, how much money to spend. Even the choice of a name for the future child was discussed not between the spouses, but with her mother. Elena tried to resist, but Igor always sided with his mother. But she knows better, she has experience. And so it happened. Elena had neither the right to vote nor respect, but for the last 2 years, Elena changed. She got a job at a publishing house, first as a modest editor, then rose to the position of department head. There she was valued, her opinion was listened to, and she was paid a decent salary. And, most importantly, she realized that she could be independent. In secret from Igor, she saved up a decent amount in a separate account. He didn't even know that she had her own bank card. All his talk about her living on his money was just an illusion that he himself wanted to believe. In addition, Elena had a lawyer for a long time, an old family friend whom she trusted. The lawyer suggested that the property purchased with her money could be assigned to her, and that selling the apartment without her consent was impossible. Igor thought that he was the owner, but legally everything was not so simple. The next day, instead of coming to discuss with Igor, Elena went to the bank. She transferred the savings to a new account, opened a separate cell, where she placed documents and some cash. Then she met with lawyer. He, having learned about the gift from his mother-in-law, grinned. They thought they caught you by surprise. Excellent. Let them think that you are submissive. The quieter you are now, the louder your move will sound later. Elena listened and felt how the core inside her was getting stronger. Yesterday's scene no longer seemed like humiliation to her. On the contrary, it was the moment of truth, when all the cards were on the table. On the third day after the restaurant, Galina Arkadievna herself showed up at her home. She entered without knocking, as always, like the mistress of the house. Quote, "Well," she began from the doorway, "are you going to pack your things? Igor and I decided that it would be better for you to live in a rented apartment." Elena calmly poured herself some tea. Quote, "Okay," she answered quietly. "Just keep in mind that this apartment is registered in my name." Quote, the mother-in-law froze. "What? In your name?" "In mine. The contract and documents are in the bank, so you and Igor might have to pack your things." Galina Arkadyevna turned pale. For a moment, she was speechless for the first time in all the years of their communication. Elena took a sip of tea and for the first time in a long time felt the taste of victory. That evening, Igor called about 10 times. The voice messages were monotonous. Sometimes he begged her to talk calmly, sometimes he demanded that she return the apartment, sometimes he accused her of ingratitude. But Elena did not pick up the phone. She sat by the window with a book and understood that she no longer owed anything to anyone. A new life awaited her, and she already knew exactly how everything would turn out. A week after the ill-fated birthday, Igor came home late in the evening. His face was tired, his eyes were red. He threw the keys on the shelf, and without taking off his shoes, walked into the kitchen. Elena was sitting at the table, a stack of documents and a laptop in front of her. She didn't even look up, only noted how loudly he sighed. "We need to talk," he said, sitting down opposite her. "Of course," she answered calmly. "Mom's prank. It all turned out stupid. Don't take it so seriously. Let's start over." Quote, Elena slowly put her pen down and looked her husband straight in the eyes. "Start over? After your mother handed me divorce papers on my birthday and you kept quiet." Igor hesitated. He clearly didn't expect a harsh answer. "I was just confused." She decided on her own. "And you, as usual, hid behind her back," Elena interrupted. For the first time in many years, he was at a loss for words. The next day, Elena filed an official divorce petition. The lawyer helped draw up the papers in such a way that Igor was deprived of many levers. The apartment remained hers, and all the joint savings in the accounts were divided in half. Igor was furious. In the evening, he burst into the apartment. "You set it all up on purpose. It's because of your lawyer friend." Elena rose from her chair, came up close to him and for the first time said out loud what had been building up for a long time. "No, Igor, it's because of you. Because you lived with your mother instead of me for years. Because you never stood by her when it was necessary." Igor was confused. He was used to seeing her as a soft, compliant woman. And now a completely different one stood before him, strong, calm, confident. Galina Arkadyevna did not give in so easily. She called, came, wrote a message. "You are ruining the family. Think about your future. It is bad for a woman to live alone." Elena stopped answering and only once, meeting her mother-in-law at the entrance, said, "Thank you for the gift. You freed me faster than I expected." Galina Arkadyevna was dumbfounded. For the first time, doubt flashed in her eyes. Perhaps she really had miscalculated. A month after filing the application, Igor came to Elena again. He looked broken, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, thinner. "Len, I realized everything," he began. "I was a fool. Let's try again. Mom will not be in our lives, I promise." Elena looked at him and suddenly realized that she was no longer in pain. Neither his words nor his requests touched her heart. It was all over. "Igor," she said softly but firmly, "I no longer need a man who promises to change. I need someone who is already different. And you will remain like this forever." He fell silent, as if he had been hit, but did not argue. He just lowered his head and left. Elena was promoted at work. Her colleagues had long respected her for her ability to take a punch, and now her management had noticed her strength. She became the head of a project that soon brought the publishing house a large contract. But most importantly, peace reigned inside Elena. She began meeting with her friends again, went on trips, took up painting, which she dreamed of in her youth. Sometimes in the evenings she sat by the window with a cup of tea and thought, "How good it is that everything happened this way. It may hurt, but now I am truly alive." Quote, One day in a cafe she accidentally met Galina Arkadievna. She was sitting alone, aged, tired. Elena came up and nodded. "Hello," the mother-in-law said quietly. "You look good." "Thank you," Elena answered. "I am happy." And for the first time in many years there was no anger between them, only understanding. Each got what she wanted. Elena went outside, breathed in the fresh air and smiled. Life was starting anew, and this time it belonged only to her.